All right, today I wanted to talk about Inside Out. And what I want to talk about in this is there is a section where Joy falls into the place called the memory dump. And I wanted to talk about the symbolism in there and how it relates in stories. Because there's an aspect of stories where you're writing a story and it's just you have plot, you have characters, you have all that, everything going on. And there is an aspect where symbolism is so ingrained in all our culture and all of them that it comes out. So there's a reason why you have this dichotomy where Darth Vader, is it an accident that he is in a black suit? We have, there's very intentional symbolism going beyond here where the Sith are all dressed in black robes and the Jedi are in white or at least some other color. Usually Qui-Gon and everything's in some sort of tan suit. So there's some symbolism going on there. It's usually black or red and black. They use red lightsabers. All of this is never really explained in the story as far as like, hey, did you guys ever know, they don't have that moment, are we the baddies? We're dressed in all this, but there's this undertone going through the story. And so you can see this usually where you'll see the symbolism where it'll be a character in white, color is a good one where it comes through from like that. You'll have animals from there. So if somebody, Aslan, from the Chronicles of Narnia, he is a lion. He represents God. He represents the god of Narnia, essentially, where he's coming back from the dead. There's all this stuff going on, and it's no coincidence he's a lion instead of like a beaver or instead of a goat. There's all this other aspect and symbolism that goes on to where even if you didn't know it, you would think it's odd, and on the other end, you think it just fits. It just seems natural that Aslan would be a lion, that Darth Vader would be in black. There is an aspect of this symbolism that's running through everything. And so this is what I wanted to talk about, is that when you're writing a story, sometimes it's intentionally and sometimes it's not. I think that's generally where it is. Some people are conscious of the symbolism they're trying to, craft throughout the story. There's this, they're really doing a big play on this. Other people, it seems to happen naturally. This is an example where I think it's happening naturally, but it just works so well that I almost want to give the guy credit, or whoever wrote it. I think it was Pete Docter, whoever wrote it, for going through here. So Inside Out, the story starts off with we have Riley, who is a 11-year-old girl, and we get to see most of the story's point of view is from inside Riley, and you have her emotions. So we have anger, we have joy, sadness, fear, and disgust. These are the 5 core emotions, and these people guide and control her life. This is what we're led. And you can very quickly see that the main emotion that's guiding her life is joy. So she's a very happy kid. She loves to have fun. You immediately get to see this side of her from here. And we also get to see from the parents' point of view in a few sections where the dad's is, anger and the mom's is sadness. There are these primary emotions that seem to kind of be the leaders. And you can kind of see this playing out in terms of temperament. So this is the point of view, and they're trying to interpret the world around her, and they're trying to take care of Riley. They're trying to make sure that she's happy. They're trying to do this, and Joy is trying to lead it. They're trying to, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what happens, we're going to take it and we're going to have fun. That's kind of the goal with Joy in this aspect for all of the characters. So, and what they have in here, they also introduce is up in HQ where all the emotions live, is kind of this long, kind of weird spaceship sci-fi sort of place like this. And from here, and then there's the giant glass window from here. That kind of is going at that point. There we go, perfect. And then there's pneumatic tubes that kind of run up in here. And inside there are these what are called core memories. These are the memories that these are what I guess you would call personality defining memories. And these are all happy. Joy has worked very, very hard to make sure that they are all happy. And very quickly, you can understand the dynamic between Joy and kind of her seemingly, if you want to call it that, arch nemesis to some degree by accident, which is Sadness, who's always trying, but always seems to make things sad. And her job essentially is just to make it sad. So Joy is trying to figure out what to do with Sadness, and most of it involves just go over there and don't touch anything. Don't touch anything. This is the goal of this one. So, nevertheless, of course, something starts going wrong, because what it turns out is Riley has moved along with her family from Minnesota to San Francisco, which is pretty different as far as moves from here. And a lot of stuff's happening. It's a lot of turmoil for an 11-year-old, and so a lot of her emotions are constantly in flux from here. So she's moving from Minnesota, and everything seems to be going wrong from the get-go. You know, the house is old and kind of creaky. You know, it's not like their wonderful house in Minnesota. The food, they have pizza. For some reason, there's only broccoli. All the pizza has broccoli on it. The moving truck with all of their stuff is stuck in Texas or wherever, so they have no things. All their things are gone. Her dad is continually busy and has no time with her. And he's also, both of his parents are very, very stressed because they're trying to figure out what's going on in the moving truck. He's trying to get settled in his new job. He's constantly working because he's constantly on the phone. All this stuff is kind of building towards a point. And we can kind of get this understanding, because all the while we're looking at it from this point of view of these emotions who are trying to, let's call these the core emotions. All these core emotions who are trying to navigate this and make things, because Joy is the leader, make things happy. And then also from here, the last straw for this is when Riley goes to school and does that wonderful thing that every kid loves to do, where she goes up in front of the class and gets to talk about herself. And she's here in front of she's grabbing her bag, and she's not doing super happy. And here's the marker board. And the teacher's over here like, yeah, tell us about yourself. You know, tell us an interesting fact about yourself. The question that literally everyone hates. And is continued because people had to suffer under it, and so people will inflict it upon others. And at this point, Riley's going over all this stuff, and she breaks down crying. And because the teacher, I think she asks her, tell us a little bit about Minnesota. And as she's doing this, she starts talking about all the things that she loved, and she starts crying. And what happens is, you notice at the same point, that Sadness, it turns out, has been touching one of these core memories. So one of these core memories is Riley winning the game, the big game, or making a winning shot, or the team. No, it's the team coming together after a big loss, and they all encourage Riley because all this stuff going on, and it's an encouraging moment. But she's crying, and so what we have is this happy memory turns to a sad one. And everything is starting to go wrong at this point. Riley is crying. She goes and sits down, and Joy and Sadness kind of have a kerfuffle, a fight, where they're fighting over the core memories. And Sadness is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't really mean to." And then she keeps trying to do it, and then they end up dislodging all the core memories, and then they get sucked into a pneumatic tube, and they are poof, gone. So now it's just anger, fear, and disgust who are left driving the ship. So Joy and Sadness go off on an adventure, and they are trying to get back to HQ, because it turns out the mind is a big place with many corners. And so most of the movie is this journey where they start off at HQ, something goes wrong, and then it's the journey back. And this is what they're trying to do. And what they're trying to do is they're going, and Joy's learning, and the parents are learning on the outside, talking with Riley and all this stuff, and stuff keeps going worse. And so what you have is you have this great tension that's building where it turns out anger, fear, and disgust they don't really know what to do. They've always relied on Joy to tell them what to do. So everything is getting worse. And also there's this question of, so there's two timelines that you have going on. And also you have this thing of, will they make it back? Will they get back? This is, of course, the big question. And on this journey from here, what they end up is they run into a fellow by the name of Bing Bong. And this is a imaginary friend of Riley's from when she was younger. And Joy is just like, oh my gosh, I was a huge fan of you. It's really odd that Riley, she's older, so she doesn't really think of you anymore. So it's just like, oh yeah, okay. So you can kind of understand that he's an imaginary friend of Riley's when he's younger, and then Joy and Sadness have a fight, and there's kind of this split shift as they're constantly trying to go through all these things, and all the while these personality islands, the personality islands, are falling apart. And you can see that, and this symbolizes that everything's going from bad to worse. And they're continually getting worse and worse and worse from here. And from here, they're on this journey, they're trying to get back. And what they end up doing is, after Joy and Sadness split up and go their separate ways, Joy ends up with Bing Bong, and they fall down into this place which is called the memory dump. And this is what happens to all these forgotten memories get thrown into this large pit. It's this really ominous looking pit with walls, and this is where all the forgotten memories, and they're always symbolized in these little bubbles, are down here. There's this giant pit, and actually it's more than a pit. It goes on forever. From here, so I probably shouldn't have drawn it as a circle, because it goes on forever. So it's just understanding that this is the abyss. This is the darkest aspect of here. All right, and they're trying to escape. And what happens is, Joy and them, they find this alcove down here which they might be able to reach, and it turns out there is a wheelbarrow, which is actually a rocket ship that is powered by song. And they're trying to ride this wheelbarrow, and you got to sing to it, and it powers the rocket ship. And as the rocket ship goes up, as they're trying to escape, and they keep doing it, and they try once, and then they fail, and then they try again, and then they fail, and they try again, and they fail. And what you understand and you're seeing is Joy is continually trying. She's never giving up. She's never giving up. We're going to get out. We're going to get out. And then there's this moment of despair where you and the audience are trying to figure out, is how are they going to get out? It's not working. This is not working. And from there, you can kind of see Bing Bong goes, wait a minute, I have an idea. He has a light bulb moment. I have an idea. Let's try this. Let's try it one more time. And so as they're going up, and they're going up out of the equipment, they start singing, and Joy doesn't really, she's looking forward. She's so focused. And what happens is, Bing Bong, as they're getting higher and higher, because the weight of the rocket ship is too much for both of them, he jumps off. And Riley keeps singing and singing and singing and singing and singing. Keep go. And she makes it out, and she escapes. So she makes it out of the abyss. And this is such a great moment from here, because what it is there's so much symbolism that's going on here. Again, it's all this undercurrent stuff that is telling us about what's going on in the world. It's communicating much more than words can. Again, nobody says Darth Vader's dressed in black because he's bad. There's just, he's in black, and there's ominous music, there's other stuff, and we understand the language. There's no disjointing of this. Everything is making sense from here. And so what we have here is what you have with Riley, because again, it's important that they escape from here. And what you have is, this whole scene is symbolic of growing up. This is what happens when you grow up. And in order to escape the pit of despair, you have to grow up. And what does that mean? What that means is Bing Bong has to fall into the memory dump, and we know what that means. And this is his sacrifice. You have to sacrifice what made you a child in order to grow up. And the reason why it's so heartfelt is because we understand that if Bing Bong stays in the memory dump, he will be forgotten. He will be forgotten forever, and then, which is basically, he will die. And it's this really heartfelt moment because it's like, I didn't really care for Bing Bong initially, but then he makes this wonderful, this beautiful sacrifice for Joy to try and get out. And this is where this whole scene really comes together, because what it is in order to escape despair, you have to grow up. You have to leave behind what made you a child in order to grow up. You have to kill that part. You have to move on past this in order to escape, in order to move on the journey. And all of this is being communicated at a very symbolic level. And that's what I love so much about it. It does so good for it. Oops. You know, none of this is actually being articulated verbally or anything like that. And so once they escape, they're able to continue on their journey, and Joy is able to find a way back with Sadness. And so there's this aspect of now that they were working together, and they have this great moment where you understand that in order to have joy, you have to have sadness. There's this duality. And then they have a core memory now. There's a core memory, which before was all joy. Now it's split in half because it's more complex emotions. You know, Riley is growing up, and this is what is translated to the audience. We're understanding on this is what we're seeing is Riley is growing up. She's beginning to understand. She's having more complex emotions. And we get to see this beautiful illustration from inside, where they're trying to figure out what's going on, what to do. And it's presenting all of this in such a great way to where we're rooting for her to grow up. We're rooting for her to learn, to grow more, to all of this stuff is going up. But then at the end of the day, when you step back, she's growing up. That's what's going on. She's trying to understand more, and Joy. And at this moment, when they come back, anger has shut down everything, the board that they used to control Riley or influence Riley in a sense, because Riley's gone into a depression, and now they need Sadness and Joy together, but primarily Sadness to take it from here and bring Riley back. Because you have to be able to understand and accept these sad emotions, and this is what it means to grow up. And this is the reason why this movie is so good, is because the symbolism works in conjunction with the plot, in conjunction with the stories. You have all of these aspects that are playing off of each other. You know, you have the plot, you have the characters, you have all of this, but then you have this undercurrent of moving scenes that are influencing us and they're building towards us. And this is where the symbolism is really coming into play, and it's working alongside with the plot and the characters, and all of this is building towards this climax where Joy and Sadness, but primarily Sadness, is able to do what she can to bring Riley home. And Riley gets off the bus because she's running away, and she comes back to her mom and she breaks down crying. And we understand that it's all going to be okay, even though she's sad, because she goes, you know, I miss Minnesota. And her parents go, we understand, we miss it too. You know, we understand, we miss it as well. Too. From there. But yeah, so I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next.